Here's what I want to go over. It's this thing called fractured reality, commissioned by the EU. It's a really comprehensive EU/American censors in exile game plan for the year ahead. So here are the contents. Fractured reality. That's how they're teeing it up. As if the problem is we all have different realities instead of one congealed reality they control. Great. Fallout from information overabundance. Conflictual echo chambers, the impact of conventional dis and misinformation, the move from isolated misinformation to the fantasy industrial complex. Is this their retort to the censorship industrial complex? You set up a censorship industrial complex. Oh, yeah? Well, you live in a fantasy industrial complex. System level countermeasures to misinformation. Countermeasures and building better platforms is not enough. Shifting business models through progressive digital advertising tax. This is the thing I really wanted to get to. This is what really caught my eye. Solutions exist but require full EU digital autonomy, foreign intrusions into EU sovereignty, and yet you have all these Americans. This is an EU playbook for how to counter basically free speech on American social media platforms. Yet they have these Americans advising them. Funny that. All right, let's just see what their framing is. This report examines the evolving impact of digital technologies on European democracy. In an era of global struggle to control the information space, this report offers critical insights into the fracturing of perceived realities, the rise of the fantasy industrial complex, and systemic risks posed by the attention economy, how platforms algorithmically prioritize engagement over accuracy. Gobbledygook. Foreign control of the most important players in the information space undermines information integrity. Okay, so remember, this is written from the EU perspective, so foreign control is going to mean American control. So this is going to be part of this Eurosky playbook, right? They're trying to build this blue sky powered European alternative. Eurosky is your European home. They're trying to create a digitally sovereign space independent of American control of the internet. Recommendations to reforming business models. This is the big one. It is all about the business models. This is one of these moments where it's like, okay, they want to try to control the flow of commerce because that's ultimately how you control all the incentives. What's up with Maloney? Well, Maloney feels the way I think most of the world does about the Iran situation, which puts her at odds with the Trump admin. And then, of course, she's now, given 500,000 migrants and things. But remember, Maloney was always this way, right? Didn't Maloney get she's like Dua Lipa, Georgia Maloney Atlantic Council Prize, right? Didn't she get the Atlantic Council? Didn't she win the Atlantic Council Global Citizen Award? Look, you don't win that for no reason. Look, she's always had her foot in both camps, the sort of populist post-Matteo Salvini populist right, and then the globalist World Economic Forum, Atlantic Council, Seize Eurasia, internationalist left. So if you're surprised by what's happening, you've just not been paying attention to what it's been about the whole time with her. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, depending on whether she needs to gear up for an election or not. So this report is Mario Scharfbillig, Stephen Lewandowski leading it. Then we got a Cambridge Disinfo Lab person, more Cambridge people, Ben Gurion, MIT. Very few people here are actually in the EU. Cambridge is British. That's not in the EU. Not in the EU. Not in the EU. Not in the EU. But it's all about how the EU can build up its censor state. The USA documents go over how to use this phrase information manipulation instead of disinformation. Estimates of misinformation exposure tend to hover at 1 to 10%. Prevalence increasing 10 to 30% on climate, health, and Russia, Ukraine. We need to pump those numbers up. The big one is we need to demonetize disinformation actors by reducing or withholding ad revenue, those pushing clearly identified misinformation. As long as misinformation is profitable, it will exist. So this is the big fight. You guys talk a lot about what happens if we lose the midterms in 2026 and what happens if we lose the presidency in 2028. How do we make sure that it doesn't go back to the censorship industrial complex panopticon that it was in before? And the answer is by preserving the business models. This is why last week I led on that win we had at the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, going after the advertisers to crack down on misinformation collusion. Because the way it will snap back is if they put commercial and financial pressure on the advertisers and on the platforms through the advertisers, as well as regulatory pressure on the advertisers. And this is the main thing that I'm concerned. If there's one thing that I'm concerned that we are not doing enough on, that's easy to stop, easy to do, but easy not to do, it's on the budding EU threat against advertisers. So they're still at it in 2026. This is from the European Union. So this is the 550 million person, 27 nation European Union, a very big economic bloc. And this is a regulatory push to demonetize everyone. And this really is the thing. What made Elon so consequential was that he was the richest guy in the world and had the money to power through demonetization efforts. And Elon offered monetization on X. He offered basically a cancel-proof subscriber mechanism. That's how you guys are seeing this now. But I'm concerned that in the back of all this, the EU could basically coerce the business model changes. The reason I keep coming back to that 2017 GlobSec D4 thing is because you saw a direct plot from the CIA, from the National Endowment for Democracy, to fundamentally re-engineer the economics of the news industry. And without money, there's no oxygen to produce information. The need for alternative business models. The negative consequences of current platform design can be changed, crowding out the middle ground and reducing shared reality. So let's see what they recommend here. Challenges to the EU's democratic information space operates on 3 levels: technology versus cognition, business models, geopolitics. You know, I love it when they're this explicit. So they're saying basically what people believe is the bottom rung of the pyramid of geopolitics. Because what people believe, what they have in their, mind, gives rise to hearts and minds. It's all mediated by technology, i.e. social media. The business models of the social media platforms end up deciding our algorithms and therefore what our cognition is, which ends up causing a winning or losing situation on all things geopolitics for the blob. Whether that's war in Ukraine, whether that's more financial support to the NGO plex through USAID, whether that's climate, public health, regime change. It's all downstream of the business models of the social media platforms and the advertisers, which in the end controls the cognition and in the aggregate determines the geopolitics. Algorithms are instrumentalized by platform owners. So the problem is platforms are private, not centrally controlled by the EU. Lack of EU technological autonomy, meaning they don't control the platforms. Instead, private owners do. Solutions, achieving digital sovereignty. It's going to be through this Euro Sky push. Key challenges. Okay, so that's at the geopolitical level. Let's see, at the business model level. The platforms facilitate low quality, sensationalist, extremist, and toxic content. Oh, yeah? I think you are low quality, sensationalist, extremist, and toxic, EU. They lock in through digital addiction. People like shit other than what we pump out. Severely limited user autonomy on platforms. So they're getting back in the middleware box. We need to install some mandatory filter that gives users choice. Choice between like 3 filters that we all control. Solutions, encourage business model change. Oh boy. Algorithms that work for democracy rather than against it. Okay. Algorithms that work for blobocracy rather than against it. And again, taking control over the algorithms out of the hands of Elon and Zuckerberg. Key challenges, information overload. There's too much information. We need to reduce how much information there is so that people only listen to us. Echo chambers, not us. We don't live in an echo chamber. Reality distortion. Away from our reality. This is like when they use phrases like polarize. Society is becoming so polarized. Polarized away from you. If you define yourself as the center, it's easy to see any disagreement as polarization. Misinformation as cause, mediator, and symptom of societal harms. Emergence of the fantasy industrial complex. What's that?
I wish more students had agreed to these electronic tracking implants. We only had 1 volunteer. If I were a truant boy out for a good time, I'd be right here, the Springfield Natural History Museum. Why, there are no children here at the 4-H Club either. Am I so out of touch? No, It's the children who are wrong.
Am I so out of touch? Am I living in a fantasy industrial complex? No, no, no. It's everybody on the internet. Solutions, regulations, right? That's always the answer. Just regulate the choice out of it. Power of the attention economy. You know, this is another thing. I keep seeing Tim Wu. Now, Tim Wu, he's Columbia, of course. I believe he wrote a book. He wrote the book called The Attention Merchants, didn't he? Yeah. So I read this book. I read it in like 2018, I want to say. It's basically the history of the news, if you will, of the news industry. It like traces the advertiser market from newspapers to radio to TV to the internet. Attention merchants is basically this concept that advertisers are attention merchants. From the beginning of newspapers, the way they monetized eyeballs was through advertising. And the more attention you capture as a newspaper, as a radio station, as a TV show, or as a social media website, or as a online news outlet, you are capturing attention and you're converting that to business, to money through advertising. And then Tim Wu ends up showing up all over these government documents. The same guy who I was studying at the feet of 8 years ago. So Tim Wu, I believe, ended up getting this government job. Look at that. He was also at the FTC, Special Assistant to the President for Technology and Competition Policy from 2021 to 2023. He's like the evil antitrust guy. He's like the evil opposite of the current FTC. Tim Wu, Biden admin, architect of the antitrust. Again, that's the FTC. Big tech critic Tim Wu joins Biden administration. Okay, so he was at the National Economic Council at the White House. It's disgusting. Again, trying to go after the business models of the big tech companies. As the guy who wrote the book on advertising is the business model that can be the point of leverage we can use to choke out the social media companies to force them to censor people. It's disgusting, but I think that's funny because we have here the power of the attention economy. So I'm already getting at the EU is like, okay, the attention economy is how you monetize human attention. This is straight from Tim Wu, Attention Merchants. A scarce cognitive resource. In this system, attention seekers, such as media producers, platforms, advertisers, entertainers, and publishers, take strategic actions to attract attention. Individuals allocate their finite attentional capacity. See how they're building up this kind of academic Jenga tower to be like, okay, we're going to regulate attention spans. By the way, I would not be surprised if the same people behind this were also advising on this Facebook lawsuit, where they went after Facebook for hundreds of millions of dollars for having like addictive algorithms. This is how they're going to start prying off the sovereignty of private platforms. Activities chosen primarily for internal goals, such as rest, reflection, social connection, or walking in nature, are not part of the attention economy. Yeah, that's what the EU wants you to do. Just go for a long walk in nature, but don't listen to anybody who disagrees with us on the internet. As long as you're not walking in nature, listening to someone like me on your AirPods. All right. So how are you going to convert this into regulatory fuckery? Let's see how they do that. Massive global shift in news consumption away from legacy media to social media. Here you go. Polarization and information threats, such as mis and disinformation. At the heart of social media is an engagement-driven business model to view advertisements. Wow, they're starting right out the box with this. It's all about controlling the advertisers. This business model is part of the attention economy. All right, so how are you gonna regulate? What's your plan to regulate this out of existence? I did pre-scan this and take some notes. Shifting business models through a progressive digital advertising tax. Oh my gosh. That's right. This thing is so crazy where they end up going with this. Let's go deeper into this. 3 layers of the influence of technology, each explored in a separate chapter. Each chapter targets a different driver, starting from the bottom, moving up the ladder of relevant interventions. Intervention, just like with a regime change being an intervention, this is like some shit we can do to interfere with people's free speech and the commercial sovereignty of the platforms. So what describes the challenge to democracy? Why is the scientific evidence? How proposes regulatory and political means to pursue the goal of demonetizing anyone who disagrees with us. We've compiled experts from legal studies, psychology, cognitive science, decision science, behavioral economics, data and computer science, media. Okay, so we've assembled a confederacy of dunces. Here is asshat academic number 1. Here you go. We've compiled like 8 people who all look like this. This is our legal studies academic at the University of Cambridge. This is our computer. So look at this. She's got all these books. She must know what she's talking about. Yeah, but the books were written by idiots, and she was trained to be an idiot by a fellow idiot. I too could just mass consume wrong shit and be a PhD in idiocy. Doesn't take a PhD.
Master, I was hoping one day I could be the chosen one.
Be quiet.
I don't like him very much. Let's kill him.
Sit down.
That's the EU right here. This is our confederacy of dunces, our EU academics.
I must apologize for Wimp Low. He is an idiot. We have purposely trained him wrong, as a joke.
So here are our assembled expert idiots who have been trained wrong as a joke, here to tell us that they represent legal studies, psychology, cognitive science. I'm just imagining in my head, anonymous Twitter 2014 egg 1, egg 2, egg 3, just like a nameless, faceless drone. Reinhold Niebuhr. Yeah, this is going to be our dude. It's going to look like this. It's going to have some name with some locked X account since the day Elon completed the X acquisition. It's going to look just like this. Wow, it's crazy. It said 2014, and that's exactly what you know me too well. All right. The authors were selected by the Joint Research Council. So this is funded by the EU. So this is funded by all 27 governments of the EU paid for this trash. Look, it's a woman, but she's fractured. Her reality is fractured. The need to overcome ever more fractured perceived realities. Can't we just have one single point of truth? Can't the Ministry of Truth just decide what's true or not? We will continue to be your single source of truth. Unless you hear it from us, it's not the truth. Damn you kids and your checks notes. What bullshit phrase we're using nowadays? Fractured realities. Subjective realities. Oh no. Reality is subjective? Weren't you like the Marxist? What's that phrase that they had in like philosophical political theory? Ayn Rand's like objectivism was like a retort, like moral relativism. High levels of polarization. Ding, ding, ding. Take the shot. Say the word. Disinformation. Again, just because I've seen the USA documents that literally say use this phrase because it's more vague. And disinformation is a little bit poo-pooed now. So say information manipulation. They won't know if we're talking about Ministry of Truth or like bots. Disinformation has evolved from identifiable falsehoods to a combination of outright falsehoods, misleading statements, and kernels of truth. Oh no. Damn it. What they're saying isn't technically false. Damn it. It's true. We have to stop it anyway. The abundance of information online overloads our cognitive system. Who? I guess if you're retarded, if you're one of these EU academics who's never worked a real job, who's never had to compete in a private marketplace, if you get your money straight from the government to shit out like research on like behavioral economics. If you milk a cow, but you give it 2 cartons of milk before you milk it, cow produces more milk. More EU funding. Wow, that's brilliant. The problem is the plebs, they just get overloaded. There's so many other things to look at online besides our bullshit. The harms from misinformation are multidimensional. They're multidimensional. They're intergalactic. They're multidimensional. They're Dr. Manhattan. Who will watch the watchers? Here's our Eurocrats with our interplanetary misinformation. Zorg must control all information online. We cannot let the intergalactic civilian class have access to free and unfair information.
Well, now, don't you tell me to smile. Intergalactic planetary.
So funny. So this shows the ambition of this ragtag group of interplanetary censors. They want to reshape the information space to change the incentives through regulatory coercion, that is, state force, laws that ban freedom. Because the problem is the interactions between politicians, that's like Trump, Mark Rutte at NATO, pressures Keir Starmer is under in the UK, pressures the government of Germany is under from the AfD, corporate actors, so they're like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg becoming conservative, platforms, X, Meta, Alphabet, TikTok, legacy media, which amplifies this, influencers, and citizens. They used to call this, in 2020, they were calling this participatory misinformation. All these things interact together. This was like this big Kate Starbird concept. Participatory design and misinformation. What is participatory? Here is from Kate Starbird's UW lab. Of course, the example is the 2020 election. Participatory disinformation. See, the political elites are interacting with the influencers who are interacting with the amplifiers, and then the media covers it. Yeah, that's everything. When you shit out a study at the University of Washington on disinformation, it's covered by the Washington Post, and then some random like Hassan Abi account, Stan, amplifies it. You too are participating in participatory disinformation. You've not made some great breakthrough into how cognition works. You've just come up with polysyllabic blob slop. You've just aggregated like 12 syllables to say something that we all know. It's called the world and how the world works. Okay, but I guess participatory misinformation ended up going the way of fetch. They couldn't make fetch happen with that. So they're back to just describing it as this chain of interactions. So the other thing is they want to do system level interventions to reshape the incentives and reduce supply. So that means going after the business models of big tech platforms. And of course, it would not be a censorship manual unless you quoted Nobel Peace Prize laureate Maria Ressa. Maria, are you hiding in my apartment right now? I feel like every time I say the word disinformation, if anybody says the word disinformation, 4'11" Maria Ressa jumps out and starts screeching at you in Filipino. Who are you, Maria Ressa? Who? I know that we've done like 12 streams on Maria Ressa, but did she, I just have to know, has anyone attempted to trademark the phrase disinformation? Does she get royalties? Does she get royalties every time that word is said? Are you like biblically obligated to cite this woman? By the way, is she still the head of the World Movement for Democracy? Did she step down? Ah, she's still listed as the head of it, isn't she? Fuck. She's still the head of the CIA's globe-spanning Rent-A-Riot network. That's crazy. She's still right next to friggin', she's with Hillary Clinton right now. Columbia SIPA school. She's still with Hillary Clinton at Columbia SIPA. She's still working with Hillary Clinton and Victoria Nuland and Mike Pompeo. So funny. Like this woman ran this totally small potatoes, local Filipino news site, and then gets catapulted to working with two different CIA directors, being the head of the CIA's Rent-A-Riot mob. That's what the World Movement for Democracy is. It's Ned's global asset list.
Authoritarian forces in every region of the world are preventing citizens from having a say in how they are governed. Many democracies are struggling to maintain democratic institutions and practices. Ethnic minorities, women, and youth in particular are increasingly marginalized from the political process. Since 1999, the World Movement for Democracy has helped civil society activists.
That's her, the chair.
Society activists to push back against these undemocratic trends and stand up for human rights.
By the way, this is how you know. Okay, so she works with two CIA directors, a Secretary of State. She runs the CIA's privatized Rent-A-Riot mob to topple governments, to control who the politicians in power are in every fucking country in the world. So you know, as soon as this piece quotes her, you know exactly what they identify the problem is. The wrong people are winning elections, and the wrong movements are on the verge of winning elections in France and in Germany, across the EU. Marine Le Pen's party is winning right now in the polls. A favorable perception of the far-right National Assembly. Highly polarized preferences. See, they're using the same phrase. The problem is they're polarized, so they're voting for the candidate we don't want to win, even though they banned Marine Le Pen from running on a bullshit transitional justice thing. Same thing in AFD. AFD is the most popular party in the country right now in Germany. Imagine if they lose France and Germany, the entire EU. Those are the number one and number two biggest economies in the EU. So that's what this is about. That's what this whole thing is about. Demonetizing the ability to promote the German AFD party, the Marine Le Pen National Rally, the Vox Party in Spain, and any international influential allies like in the US, UK, and around the world. But you know it right there. As soon as that, why do you need to insert this? It's a head nod to the fact that this is what it's about. Let's see what else it says. This is Maria Ressa right here.
Society activists to push back against these undemocratic trends and stand up for human rights. We believe that by connecting individual democracy movements together and building solidarity across borders, all democracy advocates become stronger.
So this is our cell network. These are our cluster cells around the world. And you better believe they're in the United States, but Ned is technically not allowed to operate in the United States. It's the only reason they don't have it here. This is just a world movement of CIA assets.
We work to do that in a variety of ways. We gather pro-democracy activists, scholars, journalists, and political leaders together in global assemblies, as well as in smaller regional conferences. Through our Erfurt Youth Fellowship, we nurture the leadership of young advocates and elevate their voices on our platforms. Through our crossover initiative, we share...
Look at this. It's just straight up shifting from civil society activism to politics. Hey, Ned, aren't you a 501c3? Aren't you supposed to be non-political?
Initiative, we share resources that provide knowledge from activists who have successfully crossed over into new roles as public officials.
You guys catch that? When they're activists, when they're cluster cells in a given country become a public official, that is when they become a politician, they control them as politicians. Listen to that.
Activists who are on our platforms. Through our crossover initiative, we share resources that provide knowledge from activists who have successfully crossed over into new roles as public officials.
They have a program called Crossover, which is when a Ned CIA asset who goes from leading the charge on the ground to overthrow a government to becoming part of the new government, so that they are controlled from the start of their career to their lives as mid-career politicians. See, civil society and the right to receive funding. You have a right to get my money.
Our right to receive funding.
Hey, Maria, do I have a right to receive government funding too? Where's my right to get government funding? I have a God-given right to get your money. But they know this is what it's all about. None of these people do this stuff for free. None of these people do it because, democracy. They can't even define what the fuck democracy is. Democracy is the world's biggest authoritarian censor state, if they want it to be in that moment. Democracy is Ukraine, which hasn't had elections in 6 years. Unlike Russia, which actually has elections. But Putin is at 72% approval. But of course, they're so myopically focused on this right to receive funding, because just like in this report, the whole thing is about going after the funding. It's all about going after the funding, because they know that's the motor engine.
Project provides additional hands-on tools to help civil society organizations protect their right to receive international funding. And
protect their right to receive international government funding.
Now, Set Them Free campaign marshals support for activists who are unjustly imprisoned. Through these projects and more, we strive to...
But not the January 6th election protesters, right? Didn't they start this with
authoritarian...
They start this with a picture of a bike lock blockade, which is basically what was used in January 6th. But no, not that kind of bike lock.
Through these projects and more, we strive to amplify the work and bravery of democracy activists in all parts of the world, so that we can help end injustice and build a freer world.
Yeah, freer for you by taking away the freedom of everybody else. See, network, global participant directory. Oh man, it's everywhere. Global digital policy incubator at Stanford. Oh God, it's at Stanford FSI. It's Michael McFall's joint. Oh no. the head of the State Department for all things Russia. And of course, this gets you right back into this network because who's one of the contributors to this report? It's Renee DiResta from the Stanford Internet Observatory. Great. Great, man. It's one blob. Global Digital Policy Incubator at Stanford's Democracy, Development, and Rule of Law. That's actually run by Francis Fukuyama, RAND, State Department Policy Planning Staff, a collaboration hub for the development of norms for the global digital ecosystem. What a motley little crew. The Journal of Democracy, that's NEDS, all these little CIA assets. Transitional Justice Working Group. So when you arrest all our people, that's a human rights abuse. When you arrest everybody else, that's democracy, baby. Spiral says, remember that Stanford meeting Jordan asked for reports on? Well, that was the one we were going to infiltrate. And then Schellenberger ended up covering it. I have a lot of info on that, actually, but I don't want to get too far afield. I just want to check this out. NED, of course. I wonder if they've got people in Hungary region. Let's go to Central and Eastern Europe. Okay. They don't have it listed here, but that's probably because they're afraid. Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights, of course. GlobSec, that's who hosted the D4 May 2017 meeting that we covered 100 times, including last stream, to re-engineer the economics of the news industry. They're also part of Maria Ressa's global CIA asset. I think they were funded by USAID and the State Department, and they're also one of the implementers of the EU Digital Censorship Act, which this whole thing is going to be about implementing to go after the advertisers. Let's go back to this. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, online tribes, mis and disinformation. It's interesting. USAID was actually using this insane definition of disinformation. It was like anything that induces political disharmony. It's like, what? A fantasy industrial complex. This is like just government grade gaslighting. You can just dismiss everything you don't like as a fantasy. Conspiracy theorists are 1,000 to 0 against the blob on everything related to COVID, to climate, to Ukraine. Maybe you're the one living the fantasy. May debates and politics focus solely on the role of disinformation, the need for information integrity, segmenting the world into high integrity and low integrity information so that we can censor low integrity information. Defined by the OECD, this was a big mechanism through which USAID galvanized the global censorship industrial complex. The OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Coordination and Development, or Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. This is like this policy, international policy setting. They use this to jam through a bunch of these misinformation requirements on platforms. Very nasty stuff. Again, going after the money. Okay. But that treats symptoms rather than underlying causes, which is they're going to say the cause is the money. You forgot a period here. Looks like your academics failed you again. The strategic goal of policy should be to establish technology. Okay. Fallout from information overabundance. Echo chambers. The lifespan of popular Twitter X topics. Social media signal jamming. For you. Okay, here we go. Several very large online platforms, VLOPs are how they set the bar so to apply the censorship laws against X, YouTube, TikTok, but not Blue Sky. Echo chambers, okay, in their Digital Service Act risk reporting. So this is disinformation risks. This is the Digital Censorship Act. That's so funny. Well, that last trick we didn't work. Let's just see if we define the problem as too much information. Cognition in the public sphere. Impact of conventional mis and disinfo. Platform algorithms facilitate them. If we can only control the algorithm. Harms at the level of individuals and groups, blah, 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 blah. Low trust in conventional media. Yeah, well, you fucking earned it. Overview of harms arising from misinformation. Reduce trust in elections by false voter fraud accusations. Weren't you the ones who issued false voter fraud accusations in Romania and canceled the election on that basis? Weren't you the one who issued false voter fraud accusations in Ukraine in 2014? Isn't this your go-to move? January 6th, 3 hours, people protested. They don't mention the Euromaidan 2014, no, where they killed people. They didn't mention Bangladesh 2024, where the rioters killed people for weeks. No, January 6th. Belief in misleading political claims, especially when politically aligned, but limited and inconsistent. I mean, they just give the game away right here. Misleading political claims, so you want to control what people believe politically. Public health. Oh no, sponsored by Pfizer. People are going to buy less Pfizer products. Climate action. Oh no, people are going to want cheap energy. Extremism, erosion of trust in news media. Oh no. Of course, they don't mean like the Joe Rogan show or the Tucker Carlson show or my show. They mean like The Guardian, The Washington Post, Rappler, in the Philippines. People are overconfident in their ability to discern information. It's like, who the fuck are you? Be right about one thing before you pretend to be God. One thing. Russia, Ukraine, climate, health, migration, Twitter, and U.S. presidential candidates, Germany, Facebook. Prevalence of untrustworthy sites. God, it's so transparent. Between 2017 and 2021, in France and the U.S., untrustworthy websites captured 23% of all engagement on Facebook. As defined by what? NewsGuard? As defined by the fucking CIA? 105. Quantifying the infodemic. In the Journal of Quantitative Description, Digital Media. See what our genius is over here. Oh, at the University of Oxford. Didn't the Oxford dean come out and basically call for like X to be regulated into oblivion? Oxford, of course, has the Oxford Internet Observatory, which is ground zero for that. The coronavirus news outlets in the US, UK, France, and Germany. Let's get a mugshot here. Rasmus Klein Nielsen. Dude, remember how I said you should look at these people like eggs, like Twitter eggs? And I said they probably all have names like this. I said, look, they'll all be these faceless academics with locked egg Twitter accounts, indistinguishable from like just an anonymous shit poster. They'll be at like the University of Cambridge or something. And I just randomly pulled up Reinhold Niebuhr. So what's this douche nozzle's name? Rasmus Kleis Nielsen. It's like the same fucking name. Rasmus, instead of Reinhold Niebuhr, it's Rasmus Nielsen. It's the same fucking name. This is so fucking... You can AI generate this douche nozzle's face. Oh, look, I'm at Oxford. I publish in the Journal of Quantitative Description, Digital Media. There is like a big blob wooden stick shoved up this guy's butt. And they just nudge that thing around and he just sits on the toilet for 6 hours and then craps out some academic study like this. Quantifying the infodemic. Sponsored by Pfizer. Well, the Pfizer people told me that the vaccine has no adverse effects other than myocarditis, increased cancer, turbo cancer risk, but I will determine your trustworthy news. Why doesn't everyone listen to me? If I go live right now and tried to talk to people for 3 hours straight, I'd get 4 concurrent viewers. 3 of them are my friends at the University of Sheffield. 1 of them is my grandmama. The other one is a dog currently being trained to speak fluent Mandarin, is a guinea at the veterinarian lab of the London School of Economics. But we've logged Shetland Lapdog into a YouTube account, and now I have 4 concurrent viewers. But I will determine what the truth is on the internet. Pay no attention to untrustworthy media. I'm a professor in the Department of Communication at Reuters. I'm also at the Schornstein Center at Harvard, in online business card. In entry point. Rasmuskels Kleins niche niche niche. Literally just think about the egg. Just think about the egg. This dude was like put on at an early age. He was probably like some fucking Rhodes Scholar and just got put on this diplomacy MI6 track. And then they just give away fucking fellowships from there. I've written extensively about digital media, political communication, and misinformation. I won the Doris Gray. So you just get in this circuit and people just hand you money, hand you grants, so they can hold up your credentials as like proof of some shit. I served on the European Commission high-level expert group on fake news and online disinformation. I chaired the Forum on Information and Democracy at the Working Group on Sustainability of Journalism. That just means running money to blob-slop media outlets. Oh, the Washington Post. Yes, you're probably not going to give them an untrustworthy media score, right? Ludwig Maximilian University. This one is interesting, though. He served on the European Commission high-level expert group on fake news and online disinformation. Put Alex Jones on there. Alex Jones probably is closer to the truth on any of these online it's just going to be a ring full of people who have a ring full of people like this, never been in a fight, never composed a piece of music, never composed a piece of great literature, never built a business, never were subjected to a private market of competition. They just move up doing what the CIA and MI6 want as manifested by fucking foundation grants from Open Society and Ford Foundation and Carnegie and Omidyar and Rockefeller. We want this policy done. Okay, well, we need a mountain of academic literature to validate this. The media can amplify, and our regulators who are making $30K a year but they want to be making 30 million one day. So to get in the business deal circuit, they pass policy legislation that the donor drafter class wants. And that's how you get on the circuit, is you just fucking, you're a mercenary, like media for hire. You're mercenary fucking academia for hire. Doesn't matter if it's true or false. Meanwhile, like the US government is like funding all these British universities. All right, let's get back to it. I'm kind of curious. Let's see.
Now it is time.
What could European alternatives mean? This is in 2025. 3 possible models. Okay, what are these models? Do you have a slideshow here? Or is this all from the dome? Just go to a random.
Very significant political pressure. There are private sector publishers who are not your biggest fans, and funding, while still comparatively generous in some countries, such as Denmark, where we are now, is often stagnant and being cut, as in the Netherlands and many other places. So this model is under tremendous pressure for legacy public service media, and what we're talking about is the creation of entirely new ones to compete with some of the most successful corporations in the world.
So they're trying to compete. They want digital European alternatives. The problem is they can't get enough money.
Digital News Report, across the 40-some markets surveyed in that report, less than 1%, in fact 0.2% of respondents across the globe said that they had used Mastodon last week. That's less than...
They're trying to pump up Mastodon. This is April 2025, when they're afraid Elon would have 1,000 years in power. So they tried to pump up Mastodon. You remember that push for everyone to join Mastodon? They were like, get rid of X. It's controlled by Elon. By the way, notice how these people have the same level of attendance in person as they do online. They're like, the problem is we can't compete in an attention economy. Like, bitch, you can't compete at your own fucking conference. There are more empty chairs at your own captured audience conference. There are more empty chairs in the first rows of your own conference. And you're going to compete online? This is a captured audience. These assholes have to be here.
That they had used Mastodon last week. That's less than...
Yeah, no, this dude, yeah, it's a great spiral. Yeah, you're right. This dude, watch out for this dude. I don't know who he is, but this dude is like, I'm getting that Rockefeller money. I'm getting that Ford Foundation money. I'm getting that Open Society grant. I'm a go-getter. It's true. There's something about, I don't know, man. They're dressed like lesbians at discount Coachella. Oh, did I miss? Okay, 10 from decentralized media people. So is this all to control the narrative because US politics is the biggest money printer? Well, yeah, it's to control politics by controlling the narrative, and controlling the narrative by controlling the business model of online news and social media platforms.
Less than 1%, in fact 0.2% of respondents across the globe said that they had used Mastodon last week. That's less than 1/100th of how many said they had used X.
Unfortunately, you can't. These people have never created a product in their lives. They're like, but we told them to use Mastodon. Here you go. Let me help your study out. Mastodon. What's going on over at Mastodon? Mastodon, decentralized social media. But we said don't use X. We said use Mastodon. Why are they not using Mastodon? I'm from the University of Oxford, and I said you should use Mastodon. Experienced surges in adoption following the Twitter acquisition by Elon Musk. Part of a broader shift towards Eurosky and Lemmy. I'm not sure Lemmy took off. R.I.P. Lemmy.
So,
Fetch didn't happen. Why? We told them to make Fetch happen. Why didn't the plebs just do it?
Limited effective demand from the public. And not just from the public, right? So yesterday I looked through all the different publishers who have spoken at this event. I'm not going to name anyone in particular, but just to say, all but one of them are still on X.
He's bitching that the people at his own conference are still on X. You said you weren't going to use X anymore. If these people were not so constipated, lesbianic, and out of touch, imagine how screwed we would be. Imagine if they had like a competent asshole instead of an incompetent asshole doing this. Because we have no offense and no defense going on right now in the Trump admin against this. Okay? There is nobody in the State Department, EUR, the Europe and Eurasia office, who controls billions of dollars, thousands of personnel. They have no idea this is even happening. There is nobody in the public diplomacy or the democracy, rights, and labor who knows this is going on, let alone doing anything to stop it on offense or defense. This is like a little cancer trying to metastasize. And we are just lucky, by dumb luck, this cancer is too stupid to find the lung, the heart, or the brain. So it's just a little cancer hanging out in the pinky toe, trying to find another tumor to connect to. God help us the moment they get competent.
5 of them have accounts on Mastodon, one of which turns out not to be an official account, but an automated RSS feed created by someone else.
So this dude literally stalked everybody at the conference on how to set up European alternatives to X. That way we can because once the alternative is in place, they can ban it. See, right now, if they try to levy a $150 billion fine against X, there are going to be too many like shit libs and too many politicians and too many oligarch families who are going to say, no, don't do that. If we lose X, we've got nowhere to go. This will be like Brazil trying to ban Instagram. You notice Brazil banned X in 2024, but it didn't ban Instagram. That's because this is what the average Brazilian woman looks like. Okay. You can't ban Instagram in Brazil or there'd be a fucking civil war in 5 fucking minutes. They have 2 ways of communicating: WhatsApp and DMs on Instagram. There's no Instagram alternative. Everyone just posts themselves half naked, and that's their way of doing a life update. Hey, I went to the dentist today. Here's me in a bikini. Hey, I'm walking my dog. Have you seen my torso yet today? Look, there's a wildfire that just broke out in the Amazon. Here's my cute sister. Like, that's just the way news is in Brazil. So you can't ban Instagram. There's no alternative. I guess the, hottie Brazilian baddie thotties in Brazil just aren't on Mastodon, and they aren't listening to this constipated lesbian in Brazil saying, no, put your bikini pics on Mastodon. But once they have this in place, once they have Eurosky, their Skynet shit, then this is one of the moves that they were trying to build up Threads to do before Mark Zuckerberg turned conservative. Eurosky, Europe aims to rival big tech with its own social media ecosystem. Once they get everybody there, then they can crank up the fines on X and try to dare X into abandoning the European market because they already have the alternative in place. They can't do it until then. So it's funny watching the constipated lesbian try to shame. You still have an X account. I looked at your Mastodon account. It looks like it's an automated RSS feed. It's not really you.
So this exists, but it's not really an alternative in the sense that I think people often meet.
That's a success for you, huh? We got 5 people on there. But this dude is on the friggin' European High Commission for Fake News and Disinformation. This dude has a weird amount of power in the European Union, 550 million people.
That doesn't mean that last way of thinking about the problem is not potentially important right now and potentially also important as we move ahead. I mean, I think we should sort of say out loud and recognize that there are very important parts of the digital environment that are not big. Wikipedia, Signal, Blue Sky are examples. New Public, civic tech nonprofit that I've been on the advisory board of for some time, are different examples of people who are trying to do different things with digital technology. But of course, these are also reminders that when we sort of sometimes slide into, frankly, rather crude anti-Americanism, that this is not necessarily about America, because a lot of these alternatives are, in fact, originating with civic tech and other circles in the United States of America. And again, it seems to not generally be what is meant when people talk about alternatives, but because what they are really talking about often are big alternatives. And again, judging from just the feeds that I have access to as an end user, again, I think this might resonate with this very crowd in this very room, right? Because at least impressionistically, this community is much less active on X than it was 2 or 3 years ago. But it is...
Did he do a dramatic pause waiting for an applause? Was he hoping to get an applause line? You were less active on X than you were 2 years ago.
This community is much less active on X than it was 2 or 3 years ago. But it is much...
He was hoping people would applaud.
Much more active on LinkedIn. So where have we moved? We have moved from a medium US American for-profit technology company to a much, much larger one. Not so much to Blue Sky, let alone Mastodon.
God help us if they put a competent asshole in there. Holy shit. Okay. Don't leave this person around your kids. I served on the European high-level expert on fake news and online disinformation, but they're trying to encircle it. They're trying to encircle Elon and X so they can spring the regulatory trap. So let's get back to this regulatory trap so we can see what's coming. Well, we'll leave that up. Never hurt nobody. All right, let's go back to, all right, so let's go to the advertising section. Okay, so this is why they're doing it as Eurosky, so they have interoperability, so it's not just Blue Sky, they're going to have a video hosting platform, all this stuff. Now, this is the one that caught my attention. Yeah, Civic Tech. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Civic is just CIA, right? Shifting business models through a progressive digital advertising tax. This is where the incompetent assholes become dangerous, dangerously competent. So again, this is 2026. This is their current state-of-the-art plan to reinstall the censorship industrial complex around the world, but starting with the regulatory power of the EU, shifting business models through a progressive digital advertising tax. Proponents of a digital advertising tax have the explicit goal of pushing platforms away from attention addiction and towards subscription-based models where revenues are instead dependent on sustained quality of content. For example, 2 Nobel laureates. Oh, we're back to these. Well, they must be true. They gave Maria Ressa, some third-rate crackpot journalist, a Nobel Prize. 2 Nobel laureates, wow, have proposed a 50% digital ad tax on revenues above $500 million. A tax on digital advertising, particularly when designed progressively to scale within firm size, has several advantages over traditional content moderation remedies. So instead of going after coerced individual post and narrative censorship at the platform level, or at the post or narrative level, they want to punish the platforms at the digital advertising level. This looks super nasty. Let's pop this open. Let's check out the urgent need to tax digital advertising. Network Law Review 2024. This is going to be a trip. You just know it. Let's check this out. Network Law Review. The complex science of markets and digital laws. Let's do a little exploration. Oh, we got Stanford University, Michigan. They're the ones who did course correct. Georgetown. That's where Renee DeResta is now. Georgetown Knight Institute. GW. That's where Michael B. Hayden is, I believe. One of the other CIA disinfo guys. More Georgetown and Biden. Chicago. They work a lot with the USAID on disinfo. NYU. Thibaut Schreppel, special editions. Let's check this out. Neo-Brandianites, Law and Tech of Economies of AI, Industrial Policy and Competition. We need some music, don't we? Farewell, Regional Development Girl.
I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. I took a trip on a sailing ship, and when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop, but I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town.
Sorry if I'm being mean, but like, these are the people who rule over you, you know? Oh, this Nobel laureate from MIT said that we can impose a digital tax. I mean, has this dude ever created anything in his life? This is another one of these guys, Marshall's scholar, Rhodes scholar, probably recruited into this bullshit at a young age. Nobel laureate. Wow. He said that we should go after WPP, Group M, Dentsu, go after all of the big online advertisers to force them to crush all ad revenue to Google, Facebook, X, unless they ban any popular social media account. Well, I guess we have to listen to this guy. Look, he's got a book in front of him. He can read. Who rules over you? All right. Let's see what his working papers are. Cognition. Wow. Climate change. All right. Let's check out their master plan. This seems to be the reference study that they're using. Yeah, this one. Darren Asamoglu and Simon Johnson. The urgent need to tax digital advertising. There's widespread agreement that social media has become a major problem for you. Me and the 3 people I talk to, we all agree that social media is a problem. What? Okay, well, listen, there's widespread agreement between me and my fucking poker club that you're a problem. The original hope was that, oh my God, it's the same fucking line. It's scripture. Originally, the hope was that it would democratize information. And for the first 15 years of the internet, it sure looked that way. The information superhighway gave rise to democratic movements like the Arab Spring. But then sometime around the time when Brexit happened and we lost the Philippines election in 2016, and then Donald Trump won, and then Jair Bolsonaro won, and then Marine Le Pen almost won in France, and Matteo Salvini won in Italy, and the Vox Party and AfD Party almost won in Spain. Then it became a problem. It's like the same fucking, they all drink from the same urinal. Social media facilitates political radicalization. Wow. You need a citation. Huh? Digital advertising-based ecosystems do not encourage passive innovation. Like you know anything about innovation? What have you ever innovated on? Let's go to this guy's inventions, publications, working papers. How about inventions, businesses, things he's built with his hands? What the fuck do you know about innovation? Someone's got to innovate you like a decent fucking workout plan, or at least a shirt that hides things a little better. Can we get some innovation on that front? Banning social media would not work in any political system. But in the US and other industrial democracies, the policy consensus allows imposing excise taxes, sin taxes on goods and services that are bad for our health, or on corporate actions that are considered deleterious to the economy. Unfortunately for you, these are the biggest companies in the economy. Thus, the best way forward is to impose a flat tax on digital advertising revenue, set at a high rate above some low threshold of revenues. The tax should be paid on digital ad rev because it's too easy for multinational companies to hide profits in low tax offshore jurisdictions. Obvious targets for this tax include Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, now X, TikTok, Snapchat, Amazon. To be clear, this tax would only be paid on digital ad rev. It would not be levied on subscription income. The over-reliance on digital ad rev has bolstered a business model that incentivizes grabbing and keeping people's attention at all costs. You know, this is like the ugly girl. You notice Brazilian women are not out there advocating for burqas. So when you are this dude, does he have a social media presence? Let's see. Yeah. These are not the people out here calling for burqas. Notice it's the unpopular assholes who are calling for attention taxes. Let's see. Darren Asamoglu. Let's see. Does he have his own individual social media account? Let's see. He writes all about social media, but he's not on social media. Misinformation. Strategic sharing.
What we have ended up with is a huge amount of centralization. Platforms control information. They control data. They decide what we see, who we communicate with. They monetize the attention economy. And that centralization, by the same logic, is inimical to self-government. And I think that is one of the deep aspects of the new social media ecosystem.
How is that anathema to self-government? It's a private company. 9 likes, 1 comment. It is the unpopular girl at the ball. It's the DC2 going to fucking Rio, seeing how beautiful everyone is on the beach and going, you know what, actually, I think this place needs Sharia law. 9 likes, 1 comment. Okay, will media literacy change this? All right. Good God. Let's get back to it. Let's see what the finishing touches on this are. All right. The goal of our proposed digital ad tax is to push all forms of media communications away from ad-based business models towards subscriptions, where revenues are instead dependent on sustained quality of content and user experience. So they're trying to force a change in the business model. No more free social media. What went wrong? Facebook in Myanmar. Oh my God. What went wrong? Well, the wrong party rose to power in Myanmar. Remember how I talked about how the State Department leaned on Facebook to ban hate speech against Rohingya, which is basically the drug runner, the drug mule ethnic class for the CIA in Southeast Asia? Has been for 50 years. Sri Lanka, India. But it's paralleled by what's happening in the United States. They're part and parcel of the business model, which relies on digital ads. So they promote hate speech, extremism, sensational news, and items that trigger jealousy. Actually, I feel like you're the one who's triggered by jealousy, that no one pays attention to your shit. You get 9 likes and 1 comment on your YouTube videos. Twitter's no different. As the favorite communication medium of former President Trump, it became an important tool for communication between right-wingers and separately among left-wingers as well. Why is that a parenthetical? Are you just trying to target right-wingers? Is there just like an implicit agreement that everyone who writes for Network Law Review or who reads it hates right-wingers? You know, it's half the country, asshole. Trump's anti-Muslim tweets. I mean, it's so fucking predictable. These are the people who are like, we need a digital ad tax. Why? Oh, for innovation. For innovation. No, really. Why? Okay, because Trump supporters are popular. Thank you. Thank you on paragraph 17 for telling me what the actual reason for your digital ad tax is. It has nothing to do with fucking competition, nothing to do with innovation. It has to do with people becoming right-wing and people being right-wing populists. A standard approach is to call for more competition, but we can't outcompete them because their products are really good. If we break up Meta into Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, all these companies will have the same business model. And they'll have the same similar effects on health, misinformation, extremism. Now we're at a civilizational crossroads. Okay, it's getting hot in here. This is the plan. The EU is going to try to implement this guy's digital ad tax by forcing it through in the regulatory structure. Advertising is elements of a brand of an arms race, yada yada. Setting the digital ad tax rate. According to latest numbers, the global digital advertising universe generated about $550 billion for digital ads, $500 billion a year, $600 billion in 2024. Holy shit, that's a huge. For Meta, digital ads comprise 95% of worldwide revenue, 95% of Meta's revenue. So they know they have Facebook by the balls if they can just tax their ad rev. A marginal rate of zero, under 5 billion. Okay, so they're going to basically have the Euro Sky stuff while it's still in its infancy not be subject to it. It'll only go after their political enemies. This is like Mamdani standing outside of, we're going to implement this tax system. Then you look at what it does, and it's like they're just targeting very specific people who live in the city.
Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich.
You're standing outside that dude's house. You're like, this tax is for this asshole right here. Okay, can we just have a George Soros tax? Can we have a Zohran Mamdani tax? Can we have a you're a dude who looks like this tax? It's only for dudes who look like this, okay? We're going to run a facial recognition scan. And if you look like this and you look like this, a 50% tax on all academic revenue. If you look like this and you propose a digital ad tax, we're going to propose a academic tax, okay? It's going to apply equally to everyone, but you only qualify for the tax if you look like this and you advocate this. Two can play, asshole. I tell you, make me president for one day. All right, what else is in this plan? Romer's plan includes rate increases in 5 to 10 billion increments that would only apply digital ad revenue in the United States until we get agreement on global tax. A global tax would start in the U.S., but every effort should be made to encourage the G7 industrial economies to move in the same direction. This tax would fall mostly on U.S. companies plus TikTok. Digital ads are an obvious way to build an AI-powered influencer platform. OpenAI, Microsoft may choose to bring in new forms of recommendations into the gaming world. Activision Blizzard enable broader forms of innovation. He's going right back into it. We know the reason you're doing it. You said the reason you're doing it. It has nothing to do with fucking innovation. It has to do with this and this and this. You already said it, asshole. The cat's out of the bag. All right, let's get back to our EU censorship blueprint. So how are they going to implement this? Realignment. So they're saying this will work better to bring the social media companies to ban any right-wing speech online than traditional content moderation. A progressive tax, content neutrality, and legal feasibility. This is my favorite. An ad tax is not premised on the nature of the content itself. It's business model based rather than speech based, which helps insulate it from legal and political challenges grounded in freedom of expression. Look at how fucking sinister that is. Okay, let me highlight this. This is kind of unbelievable if you think about this. How sinister. This is where the incompetent assholes are unfortunately weirdly competent. Okay. Oh, Spiral's got a link. Let's pop this open in the background. The Group of 30 on International Economic and Monetary Affairs, including former chairs include Mark Carney. So it's the banking syndicate. It's the fucking bankers. Head of the Monetary Authority in Singapore, governor of the Reserve Bank, former chairman of JP Morgan. It's the fucking so this dude is just the fucking policy arm of the fucking banks, of the biggest banks in the world. Federal Reserve Banks, JP Morgan, and here he is. Notice how they don't zoom down. There's a reason they're not zooming down. Call it a headshot for a reason. Bank of England, Citibank. This is the dude who's proposing the digital ad tax on the social media companies. Because fucking BlackRock isn't getting the right politicians elected with free speech on social media. Unbelievable. Great catch, Spiral Bewilder. People's Bank of China, Kuwait, Poland, Spain, Argentina, former director of the IMF, Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Jesus. Oh, I got friends in low places. Need a little music break.
I'm not big on social graces. Think I'll slip on down.
Look at how insidious this EU plot is. This is why the first line was our legal scholars, our legal academic theoreticians. It's because by going after a digital ad tax, look at this, legal feasibility. An ad tax is not premised on the nature of the content itself. It's business model based rather than speech based, which helps insulate it from legal and political challenges grounded in freedom of expression. Isn't that amazing? They already said, it's also regulatory efficiency. It's less costly than regulating algorithms, content moderation, because you need teams of thousands of these little censor termites. Look at how insidious this is. So we already have them saying here, the real reason they're doing this is because it gives rise to Trumpism around the world. And because we have a First Amendment in the United States and there might be political blowback, what they're saying in the EU blueprint is that if we camouflage, even though our real purpose for doing this is to stop popular content that makes people vote for right-wing governments, if we disguise it as a digital ad tax, then it insulates it from legal and political challenges that insinuate that we're doing this to get rid of political speech. That's why we're doing it, though. But if we structure it like this, they won't be able to challenge us on the basis that we're doing it because of this. Isn't that amazing? Are you guys as amazed by that as I am? That they come right out and say it. The benefits of doing it this way are that we can get around legal challenges that we're doing this. Now, we're doing this because of speech. We're doing this because right now it's really difficult to force regulated algorithms and force content moderation changes against all the political and legal pressure on the other side towards freedom. But we can sidestep that. We can go after the algorithm at the digital ad tax level. So here you go. This is to better internalize social harms. Legislation can refine the digital ad tax to account for the concentration of harmful or problematic content in a platform's output. Look at this. This is insane, right? Legislation, so EU legislation, can refine the ad tax to account for the concentration of harmful or problematic content in a platform's output, akin to taxing the toxicity of industrial effluent rather than its sheer volume. This aligns with well-established environmental principles that can be operationalized without engaging in speech regulation. The underlying idea is to follow financial auditing principles. Instead of assessing all individual posts, rather to sample a representative flow of content from the platforms and test them for the prevalence of disinformation. This would be in line with the Digital Censorship Act and ease the efforts to categorize platforms for compliance with the DSA, Center on Democratic Resilience. So look at that. So what they want to do is they want to use legislation to have the advertising tax account for the concentration of harmful or problematic content. Instead of assessing all the posts, what they'll do is sample a representative flow of content from the platforms and test them for the prevalence of disinformation. And they could use the EU Digital Censorship Act to enforce that. So basically what they'll do is they will just cherry pick. They'll run a search for vaccines. And then they'll sample 1,000 posts about vaccines. It'll be some asshole who looks like a lesbian. It'll be him and 7 of his gender amorphic friends. And they will look at those 1,000 posts and they'll see whether or not they're pro-Pfizer or anti-Pfizer. And they'll say, we assess that you have a higher prevalence of disinformation. So you should be subject to the higher progressive digital ad tax than Blue Sky. And they will say, this is not speech regulation. This is just a tax law. But the filter for it is the speech that you're hosting on the platform. And what are the companies going to do? They're going to leave all of Europe. They're going to leave all of Canada. They're going to leave all of Australia. They're going to leave all of Brazil or pay the tax. The only thing that can stop this is the U.S. government. It's the State Department. It's the Treasury Department. It's the Commerce Department. It's the U.S. fucking military. It's our involvement with NATO. And my fear is the EU is going to start setting this up, building a consensus, and our diplomats are not going to be in the room. They're not going to be applying counter pressure. They're not going to say, if you even think about doing this, we're applying a fucking you look like this tax. If you look like this and you're a member on that financial auditing board around disinformation, we're taxing your home. We're taxing every French fucking winery. We're taxing every cheese shop. We're taxing every fucking German sausage. Every Italian fucking pizza slice is going to have a fucking disinformation tax up its ass. Sneaky, sneaky. And this is their 2026 guide. They commissioned this. The EU did. That means people in Hungary paid for this. People in Poland paid for this. The taxpayers. They can refine the advertising tax to account for the concentration of disinformation. The final intervention involves a classical free market approach. Yeah, I'm sure it does. Applied to digital speech, speakers could voluntarily signal content quality on attention markets, e.g., being free of disinformation, by staking resources like monetary assets to attest to their claims, using advertising and crowdsourcing. As with an ad, the speaker would place the stake with a platform prior to the message distribution, and it would increase in the size of the audience reached by adding an amount to the advertising cost per impression. So basically, this is like saying if your speech is favored, you get more advertising revenue. This is an easy thing to do. I'd put up money on the truth of my post. Well, it's an easy thing to do if you're a fucking fact checker and you determine what the fucking truth of a post is. Newsom? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Newsom's people are looking into this, like California digital ad tax. I wouldn't be surprised. Look at this. Proposed California legislation aims to impose a 5 to 7.25% tax on digital advertising revenue for companies with over 100 million to 2.5 billion in global revenue. So Newsom is trying to do this in California. Purpose: revenue is intended to support journalism. So again, they're going to rob Facebook and X and YouTube to pay blob slop media. Of course, you can be exempted from this if you publish pro-Democrat speech. Now, you know the California czar for this, California tech advisor, previously like the head of this for USAID, Vera Zakim. Vera Zakim is the state chief technology innovation officer, just like this guy was the economic innovation officer for the fucking World Bank who proposed the digital ad tax. You know what Vera Zakim did before she got this job? She was the head of the information integrity program for USAID. She literally led the ProInfo, the information integrity program at USAID, the Promoting Information Integrity Resilience Initiative at USAID. Went straight from running the censorship program at USAID to being California's chief technology innovation officer as it promotes this digital advertising tax. Holy shit. Holy shit. It's one big blob and you ain't in it. Now, you know what I want to hear, actually? Bob Seger.
Guess I lost my way. Well, I'm older now and still running.
This is so funny. So here you have the fucking news guard, head of the CIA, head of the NSA, 4-star general, head of NATO, head of DHS, head of the State Department Global Engagement Center, and head of NATO, all on its board of advisors. And of course, NewsGuard has a misinformation partnership with the EU. They partnered with the Joint Research Center of the EU on misinformation, who commissioned this report out of the EU. Why? It was the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. So this is how they scientifically prove that X has lower information quality. Because the fucking CIA, Michael V. Hayden at NewsGuard, said, we ran some AI analysis on 18 billion tweets. And people are more pro-Trump now. People are more right-wing than they were. People are citing Newsmax and Breitbart and The Federalist. Unbelievable. And of course, they're fucking working with them. NewsGuard today announced a collaboration with Joint Research Center to provide it with data monitoring that tracks online misinformation. These are the new clientele now. Big Daddy European government, signatory on the Code of Practice on Disinformation. Fight against disinformation. NewsGuard's rating database covers all news and information that account for 95% of online engagement in France, Germany, Italy, the UK, and the US. Incredible. Just fucking blob slop for hire. So, of course, it was a Harvard study. O's Tehran with some fucking pretentious double dots over the O's. Declining information quality under new platform governance. Following the leadership transition, there was more misinformation. Look at all these assholes. The Confederacy of the Dunces. Oh, the Harvard Misinformation Review, run by Joan Donovan. This was the head of the Harvard Misinformation Review. You look up to see who rules over you. Who is the godlike determinant of whether or not you can earn $1 online? Who is the God button minister of truth? You look up and it's Joan Donovan. This is her outfit. Harvard Misinformation Review that the EU is citing. Do you think they could even publish the study if the answer was no? We applied NewsGuard's reliability scores. You see how they launder bullshit? They just shit out a brick, and then they just pass that brick around to Harvard. And then Harvard hands the stinky brick to the European Union. And then the European Union hands it to a bunch of EU regulators. And then suddenly you have a digital advertising tax. And Elon's out $150 billion. Incredible. News influences. We operationalized information quality by evaluating the domains using NewsGuard scores. Calculating the average source quality of links. Incredible. What a racket. What a racket. In Europe, X has been implicated in boosting far-right content. Or people are just more right-wing because of how disastrous the left is running Europe. French prosecutors launched a probe. The owner of X used his platform to interview and actively promote the leader of a far-right party. Okay, you guys never met with Zuckerberg? Online platforms as part of the hybrid threat agenda. Hybrid threats, back to that. PSA requires systemic disinformation risk assessments. Survey evidence, how politically feasible is it? Hybrid threats. See, this is what I'm saying. They're terrified about losing Germany to AfD. Notice that they said France, they highlighted France and Germany in those two anecdotes. And what did I say? They're terrified about losing the French and German elections. It's so predictable. And those are the first two things they focused on. Hybrid strategies, focus on divisive issues. Migration in Ukraine, you mean like important issues? Misconduct by local actors, i.e. by far-right party. Just come out and say it. Just say you're fucking shit-lib leftists. How can these countries stay in the EU? Poland, why are you still in the EU? Viktor Orban, why did you stay in the EU? Don't you see? Take more money from China if you need it. Work out an agreement with Trump. We'll wean you off of it. But your money is going to fund your assassination. Weak or lacking enforcement by platforms and regulators. The need for action now. Grok praised Hitler. Grokopedia. Without the wokeness. Support of a strong political slant to the far right. Okay. Does Wikipedia have one to the far left? What do your studies say? What did this dude find in his study of the tweets? AI, control over AI. Achieving digital autonomy is a massive undertaking that requires us to actually invent something. Or to just buy what Jack Dorsey's new Blue Sky project is building. The Eurostack Initiative. It is an initiative for Europe on digital sovereignty. Are they just going to keep pestering people at all of their little censorship conferences until everyone's on it? I noticed you're not on Mastodon. To participate in this conference on content moderation, you must have a Mastodon account. Cityverse. What's Cityverse? Is this like some Citibank shit? What's that? What was that? Archive.org. Let's try this. Okay. This shit is so unclicked on. It's not even archived in the Wayback Machine. Okay. But above all, the business model will still influence tech development since profit maximization require a business model change. Public procurement needs to facilitate this. Okay, so they're going to need more public spending. You can bet if a Democrat takes power in the U.S., they will send U.S. taxpayers to fund the EU Eurostack. You can bet public procurement's 2 trillion euros could catalyze digital autonomy. So they're going to make it government funded. At present, many institutions at the EU level are primarily active on the same social media platforms that do not seem to be aligned with EU values and are vulnerable to misinformation. They're doing the same thing that guy did at the conference, that the lesbian said at the conference. The problem is, right now, many EU institutions are still on X. This creates an undesirable lock-in effect for the public. We want to make sure that they're present on Mastodon. The EU could invest in tools that allow public communicators to easily cross-post so that they can stay on Facebook but still build up their Mastodon accounts while we're astroturfing Mastodon. Currently, communicators often focus on the biggest platforms based on concerns of reach and efficiency. Having a low-cost and easy-to-use cross-posting would reduce lock-in effects and give a boost for startups with different business and governance models. You're going to have an EU-subsidized cross-post thing so that your Blue Sky account is automatically, Elon, you got to disable the API on that shit. Stat. No free money here. They're misaligned, like they're still on X. Eurosky.social. Your portal to the atmosphere. Blue Sky. Blento. Create your own website. The fun way. A website without misinformation. Flashes, photos, and video social sharing. Come on, guys. Join our government social media platform. They're basically building a Chinese Great Firewall type thing. Easy blogging. Look, share photos and videos as long as they don't have misinformation. Streamplace, where you can Should I do the next stream from Streamplace? See how long I last on Europe's proprietary Elon-proof social media ecosystem? RSVP for fun and for work. Like I said, these people have never created anything in their lives. And so, like, if you've never heard of these, it's because they're all dog shit. But they're going to be state mandated like China does. That's what they're moving towards. One effort involves Eurosky, a public interest infrastructure project. No single company or country can dictate the rules. Yeah, it's a panel of 8 people who look exactly like this at the European Union who dictate the rules. Is that better? Control AI. Euro LLM. Yeah. That's what it looks like. Shattered glass. The EU's unique position, encapsulated by the Brussels effect. The idea that when Brussels sets laws, the world follows. The struggle for information supremacy. Resilient disorder. Harmonic divergence. The most urgent ones, new interventions on platforms, business models, and information integrity. By taking a leading role, the EU can set a global standard for the digital information space. So that serves our interests instead of anybody else's. Alternative algorithms and markets for algorithms. Combat disinformation. What are the most urgent views of expert views on the most urgent actions for the EU to undertake? Number 1, digital platform regulation. Number 2, combat disinformation. Number 3, strengthen EU unity to counter anti-democratic threats, prevent any right-wing party from rising to power. Wow. So the next thing to look at is what back channeling has been done between the EU and advertisers. Actually, kind of curious. Describe all the mechanisms that the EU DSA has in place around digital advertising, misinformation, then go a step farther and find all outreach you can between any EU body and any major digital advertising company around misinformation, brand safety, and content moderation, etc. Fascinating. All right, well, we're at 3 hours and 10 minutes. I am surprised I lasted this long. Thank you guys for sticking with me on this. I know that I am not my usual high energy self today, but I wanted to make sure that I got back with you guys because I missed you, and this is my favorite part of the week. Tell me a story. I'm a little heartbroken this week, guys. I don't know how to say it. Am I just a jagged jigsaw puzzle piece? Can anyone fit?
You always won. Every time you placed a bet, you just turn your back and walk. You always said, cards will never do you wrong. A gambler share, the only risk that you would take, the only loss you could forsake, the only bluff you couldn't fake. And you're still the same. I caught up with you yesterday, moving game to game, no one standing in your way, turning on the charm.
Not anymore, there's not.
Long enough to get you back.
All I'm left with is a tummy ache and a headache, and I can't eat. Damn.
There you stood, everybody watched you play. I just turned and walked away. I had nothing left to say, 'cause you're still the same.
You know how I feel right now? You know when you're building a future with someone? I lost my chat. I'm chatless.
Like so many others, I had become a slave to the IKEA nesting instinct.
Yes, I'd like to order the Erica Picari dust ruffles.
I had it all, even the glass dishes with tiny bubbles and imperfections.
I don't know, it's just when you buy furniture, you tell yourself, that's it, that's the last sofa I'm gonna need. Whatever else happens, I've got that sofa problem handled.
You know, that was what it was. It was like, all right, I'm on this pirate ship, but I've got that regional development girl issue handled, you know? Whatever else happens. And you spend years and years. And then one day, there's a giant explosion at your condo. And I guess the things you own end up owning you. The road to recovery. We'll end with this. It was supposed to be us. All right. Thank you all for joining me tonight. The next stream will be the maiden voyage of the Big Mama. It'll be the beginning of a beautiful new chapter. I will be back at full strength, and I'll be over this bullshit, you know? Fleetwood Mac said it, right? Women, they may come and they may go. When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. On that note, Good night, Godspeed. I will see you on the internet.